Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saivan Ebia. I will be presenting today's webinar dedicated to pay TV operators' OTT strategies. So let's start first with a quick introduction of Dataxis's activities. We are a market research and event company. We are covering all regions of the world. The intelligence service that we provide provides indicators on TV, OTT, telecoms, technologies markets, and the events that we organize are in Europe, Latin America, and Africa. And finally, we publish an online newsletter that is dedicated to the sector's evolution, in particular in Africa and Latin America. So all the data that is used for this presentation comes from Dataxis's database, as we make available both quarterly data and forecasted figures to our clients for all the countries and all the regions in the world. And all the topics that will be addressed during the presentation, pay TV distribution, SVOD, streaming services, connectivity, all these topics are also discussed during our conferences. And the next one is taking place in Bogota next week. And there are others in Miami, Mexico, Europe at the beginning of autumn. So the presentation is recorded and the PowerPoint will be shared on the website and at the end of the presentation. So today we wanted to address the question of OTT services that are deployed by pay TV operators to understand first the reasons that can trigger the launch of this type of services by operators, why initiatives are contrasted when we look at the situation in all countries, which regions are leading the race, which are the most advanced countries in terms of OTT developments. Then if the OTT services launched by pay TV operators are a response to a threat triggered by standalone OTT services, is it only in a few regions? We will try to understand their characteristics, the way these services were deployed, the results for the operators. And we'll try to analyze the question of the question being, are these improvements efficient to tackle the loss of subscribers or the loss of revenues that can be witnessed in certain areas for certain operators? And if they are not enough, what are the other levers that pay TV operators can activate or have already been activating in some regions? So the question of OTT services from the point of view of a pay TV actor was raised essentially in reaction to the threat of standalone OTT services. The launch of these services can have an impact on operators' distribution and position in the audiovisual market. But for this situation to develop, the first requirement is the broadband connectivity. OTT services will only rise with the rise of broadband access, and it's the first condition that is not necessarily met everywhere in the world. So we see here on the chart that situations are very diverse on the global scale. Broadband penetration over households reached high levels in North America, in Europe, in the part of Asia and Oceania, and Latin America, in the most developed countries. But in Middle East Africa, that has an average of 15% penetration. In SAARC countries and in Southeast Asia, the connectivity is not fully reached. The penetration levels remain low. So these differences have various explanations. We can mention, for instance, the lack of infrastructures or a lower GDP per capita that translates in differences in terms of addressable demand in some countries. And this particular indicator creates important, visible differences when it comes to OTT distribution. So this map results from the previous map, and we see that the OTT services penetration is low in Africa, Middle East, in SAARC, in Southeast Asia. In these regions, the fixed wire connectivity isn't expected to increase very substantially in the coming years, but mobile broadband could be the relay to achieve a widespread internet access and widespread usage of internet. Infrastructures for mobile broadband are developing. There's a growing demand for 4G, and this is also a way to enable OTT distribution. But there is another criteria which can represent a hinder in some regions. It's the price of OTT services. So in North America, OTT services can often cost less than 1/10 of a pay TV subscription. So the price advantage is very obvious in this region. But in other regions, pay TV prices and operators' average revenue per user can be lower than OTT services. So this is particularly true when we look at international OTT services, and the biggest ones that we have in mind, like Netflix or Amazon. And it's the case in Central and Eastern Europe, in Middle East Africa, in Southeast Asia. So in these regions, OTT streaming platforms, they can be more flexible compared to pay TV, but they are not as complete as a pay TV package, and they are not cheaper. So this doesn't mean that the trend won't reach these regions, but the deployments will take more time, most likely. And actually, many operators are already expecting a shift. They are already positioning themselves with OTT services in all these regions, in Africa, in Asia. But as these markets are not the ones where pay TV operators are the most under pressure, we will not focus on them during the presentation. And the analysis will concentrate on Americas and on part of Europe, Western Europe and Northern Europe, where the reach for operators to enrich their existing offers is the most visible. So here we can observe the evolution of pay TV and streaming services subscribers and the adoption of streaming services by American and European populations. We see that traditional pay TV, which comprise of DTH, DTT, cable, IPTV distribution, this distribution has been stagnating over the past 2 years, while streaming services gain more and more subscribers, and they grew of around 50% over the period. So streaming services subscribers now represent close to 90% of pay TV subscribers if we look at Americas, Western Europe, and Scandinavia. And this increase also goes along with an erosion, progressive disaffection for traditional TV. That also includes free-to-air households. And we see here on the chart that the number of households that don't own a TV set started to change in some regions. In Americas, the shift is not too significant. The number of no TV households is still slowly decreasing in North America, and it started to slowly increase in Latin America, but not enough to change the share of no TV households compared to the total number of households. And this means that in the two regions, the penetration of television is still slowly increasing. But in Scandinavia and in Western Europe, the number of households that don't own a TV set is increasing rapidly. And this is translating into a decreasing TV penetration rate. So in 2018, around 10% of households in this region didn't have a television, whether it was to receive free-to-air or pay channels. And the second chart highlights the evolution of usage. So across all age groups, the time spent in front of TV has decreased between 2011 and 2017. But the highest decreases are observed on the youngest categories. So this doesn't mean that they're not interested in content anymore, but TVs are no longer a prerequisite to watch video content. And these categories will prefer to turn more and more to other devices or other type of distributions. And this shift away from TV results in what is often described as cord cutting in reference to cable distribution, which is the norm in the United States. And it refers to subscribers that are canceling their traditional TV subscription to subscribe and figuratively to cut their cable to subscribe to only digital video services such as SVOD. So when we look at revenues, the threat doesn't seem as compelling as in the view with subscribers, but this comes from the fact that SVOD and streaming services are less expensive than pay TV services. So revenues aren't increasing as fast, but we can observe still a stagnation trend for pay TV revenues and an increase for OTT revenues in the 4 regions. So for the 4 regions, OTT revenues have been doubling or almost doubling between 2014 and 2018. And the platforms that capture these OTT revenues comprise of different types. The OTT streaming services include SVOD, so subscription video on demand, VOD, video on demand, whether it is a rent or definitive, linear OTT that can be distributed either on a package, so several channels bundled by an operator with the same model as a pay TV subscription, or linear OTT that comprises only of one channel distributing its content directly to customers. And standalone D2C for direct to consumer. Here the service isn't related to another service. It's possible to subscribe only and directly to it, and there are no intermediary such as a TV operator or a TV channel. So the actors that we see in the chart are the best known, and I hope it will work now without any problem. So I just wanted to describe the first OTT services that were offered by pay TV operators and that we call the TV Everywhere service. So this service is aimed at existing customers and it enables catch-up or live streaming of the programs that are already broadcasted on traditional TV. These services can be enabled on multiple devices. The TV Everywhere platform or these services have not been implemented identically in all countries. In Americas, the most frequent model is a service that is aggregating the applications of the TV channels and then distributed by the pay TV operator. And in Europe, the operator usually makes the service itself, aggregating the content that is also broadcasted live. In both cases, the services can be paying services, meaning that operators can require a fee to grant access. But the most common model is a free service on top of the subscription to cable, DTH, IPTV, or DTT. And we see that the service became widespread between 2012 and 2018, both in Americas and in Europe. So in 2012, close to 60% of pay TV subscribers had access to a TV Everywhere service in the US. And they grew to 90% in 2018. And in Europe, only 13% had access to a TV Everywhere service in 2012, and they were 75% in 2018. So we see that the vast majority of players developed this functionality and made it available to their subscribers. And now other models have also emerged and have been progressively developed and deployed by operators or by platforms. So on the one side, there are the operators that launched their own D2C product. So contrary to TV Everywhere, there is no need to be an existing customer to access the service. It can be a smaller, more flexible and less expensive version of the pay TV package, what is called a skinny bundle, deployed to retain potential cord cutters. And compared to TV Everywhere, catch-up possibilities are also extended. So there are specific rights for OTT and they are different from catch-up rights. There are many services in the US because the pressure has been important on pay TV operators, coming in great part from the gap that exists between pay TV and OTT streaming prices. And besides, many platforms are originated from the US, So they grew first in their own market before exporting their service to the rest of the world, which means that in many cases, the US operators were affected first, and operators had to evolve faster and launch the skinny bundles that we see here, like Sling, DirecTV Now, or Watch. And in Europe, operators also launched D2C OTT services, like Magenta TV from Deutsche Telekom, for instance, or Pix from Proximus. And the offers were adapted to include more flexibility, more options, and for operators to monetize their content differently. And on the other side, D2C platforms are partnering with pay TV operators also to have their platform distributed on the operator's set-top boxes. So this gives them the opportunity to address a larger potential user base, and sometimes from the launch of the platform. And then the partnership depends on each platform's weight. So some platforms will be an advantage for pay TV operators, and the operator will be eager to add the platform to its offering. The deal then will be maybe more profitable to the SVOD service. And on other cases, platforms have to convince operators, which means that the deals and revenue share won't be the same. And this also means that there are two distribution models for OTT service. The service can be only made available on the set-top box. So here there is no specific distribution agreement between the pay TV operator and the OTT service. If a customer subscribes to the OTT service, it will be billed by the OTT service and not by the pay TV operator. And in the second model, the operator is a reseller, and OTT services are offered to the client base as either a discounted add-on to an existing subscription or free and premium subscriptions. And for the platforms, most platforms, there's an arbitration that must be done between either accessing a large potential customer base from the start, thanks to a partnership with a pay TV operator, but with the disadvantage of having to share revenues and subscribers ownership with them. And this can include the data usage, for instance, that is not necessarily given by the platforms. Or they can choose to address customers directly and own the relationship with customers and without sharing revenues. But this requires investments to gain the customers in marketing, distribution, and it might not work if the brand isn't strong enough. And there is also the possibility for platforms to start their launch in partnership with TV operators, gain a substantial user base, and cut the relationship. And this would actually be following a scenario, the same scenario as a certain number of TV channels that created their own D2C OTT service to address their customers directly. And in both cases, operators are involved in OTT. They are using OTT either as a relay or as an add-on to their existing offer. And these strategies are showing some results if we look at the total of the market. Here we see the evolution of TV and OTT subscribers for the operators that launched OTT services. So since the market remains fragmented, these actors that launched their own OTT service represent only a small share of operators, close to 10%. But they comprise of the largest operators, so in terms of subscribers and revenues, they represent much more than 10%. And we see that their traditional subscriber base is decreasing. So they lost 11% between 2016 and 2018. But at the same time, these same operators have an increasing number of OTT customers, including OTT linear pay TV and SVOD, because they increased by 62% between 2016 and 2018. And then when we look at the split by technologies, we observe that legacy broadcast infrastructures are particularly affected by this trend. So DTH subscribers are decreasing in the two regions that we're looking at between 2014 and 2018. And this is partly because, well, this is due to DTH's particularities. This technology doesn't allow bidirectional communications. It's not an interactive technology, not as flexible, not as advanced as other technologies. And therefore, subscribers are migrating from DTH to IPTV or to OTT. And this can be intentional from the operator. And it's the case of Sky in the UK or DirecTV Now in the US. And so this means that with OTT, operators manage to maintain approximately their existing subscribers base. But it's worth mentioning also that the average revenue per user has been decreasing due to the fact that skinny bundles or SVOD aren't sold at the same price as a complete pay TV subscription. So it means that revenues are not evolving at the same pace as subscribers. And at the moment, operators with a D2C offer remain marginal in number of operators. And one of the reasons why small operators are less likely to develop this type of service at the moment is the costs that are associated with the development of an OTT service. So there are implications in terms of technical implications that are important to highlight. The OTT service or application needs to be adapted to different types of device, and they need to comply to all the technical requirements of all the devices. And there is a need to not only develop the possibility to be used on all the devices, but also to control that there are no technical issues on all the distribution. And this is what the photo is highlighting. It's a room in Amazon Prime Video's offices in London, and they have a room full of devices to be able to check, to verify in real time that everything is working as planned. And these devices, in particular smart TVs, are subject to frequent evolutions. So for each version of a device, and particular smart TV, the service needs to be adapted. And service needs to be compatible with all devices, all versions, all years, with backward compatibility. Many companies can develop this, but this is costly for from the operator's point of view. And it's out of reach for the smallest operators that can't invest in this much in technologies. But this is something that could change with the development of Android TVs that allow operators to include OTT features or advanced functionalities. And we see here that the deployment of Android TVs is increasing rapidly. In 2018, they represented half of advanced set-top box deployments in Americas and Europe. Then regarding content strategy, which is crucial for all operators, the competition is soaring. More and more actors are investing in content, encouraged by the possibility of direct distribution. So here we separated different types of actor in the chart. The first one, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, they all invested or plan to invest in content. Google with YouTube, Android TV, Amazon is producing an increasing number of originals, exclusive content. Facebook launched Watch to distribute original content and licensed content. Apple service, Apple TV, is expected to launch this year. So they are all becoming competition to content providers. And TV networks have also started to address their user base directly with an OTT. These trends. This is more and more frequent, and the size of the channels vary, but we can mention here Disney service that is also expected this year. And then we have pay TV OTT, standalone platforms, and Netflix that we already mentioned. So these developments mean that the services are more and more fragmented, and the key for these platforms is the production of original content to differentiate from the competition. This is particularly true if content providers withdraw their content from the other platforms that used to be their distribution partners. And some genres are more affected than others. So movies, series, fictions constitute the largest part of SVOD when we look at subscribers in 2018. We see here that close to 70% of SVOD subscribers are subscribing to a platform that is offering mainly fictions. And this doesn't count generalist platforms that can also offer film, series among their programming. And this is the segment where existing actors are the most challenged, and they were already channels that had to shut down because of this increased competition. For sports, we see that sports OTTs are not the most widespread at the moment, but it's also an area with content that is driving the subscriptions and where operators can be challenged. Prices are increasing for major competitions, and it's partly because of the involvement of new actors that are investing in this area. And finally, if the operators don't own their exclusive content, and if they stay in aggregation, in an aggregation role, aggregation of other players' content, they are also competing with smart television, which are also distributing content and channels applications. So as the competition keeps increasing from D2C services, including those that are developed by Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and the competition from smart TVs, the added value of pay TV operators can't eventually lie only in distributing and aggregating services, third-party services, even if the distribution is made on OTT. As content owners, the content owners now have the possibility to address their clients directly, and operators need to invest in their own exclusive content in sports, in fiction. This can be done with the implementation of a vertical integration towards content providers, like the purchase of Warner from AT&T, for instance.